Hey, everyone. Welcome to Locked on Lakers for Thursday. Brian Kamenetsky and Andy Kamenetsky. Rui Hachimura makes his debut, and Anthony Davis, thank God, is back in the lineup. And you could tell the difference. That's next.
You are Locked on Lakers, your daily Los Angeles Lakers podcast. Part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks to everybody for making Locked on Lakers your first listen of every day, Monday through Friday, no matter how or where you get your podcasts. It's always going to be free. It's never going to be behind a paywall. And Locked on Lakers on YouTube is where you can go to look at all of this, Andy, and really get involved and participate in a great Lakers conversation with a very fast-growing community of Lakers fans who, by the way, are like cool to each other. It's like it's a nice board. It's not filled with jerky types and whatnot. You got a good range of Lakers fans with a lot of different opinions, but it's a very civilized place to talk about the Lakers and the NBA. So we appreciate all the support everybody's been giving us there. A lot to touch on in today's show. The Lakers finish off the homestand, the second night of a back-to-back, beating the very bad San Antonio Spurs 113-104. But Andy, this game's really about the debut of Rui Hachimura and the return of Anthony Davis. So let's start with AD. 26 minutes. He's on a minutes restriction. Darvin went over by a minute. I think he was supposed to cap it at 25. He went to 26.
24, I believe. That's what we were hearing, that it was 24 originally from Dave McMenamin. It was 22-24. So
yes. Darvin said after the game, he seemed to say that he went a minute over, but he might have meant 2. So whatever it was, but it's in that 25-ish minute range. So with that in mind, he plays 26 minutes, 7 of 15 from the floor, 12 rebounds, 4 blocks, 21 points on a per minute basis. Andy, that is some very productive work for a guy who hasn't played in 6 weeks. And man alive, you could tell the difference in the Lakers defense from the moment AD was back on the floor.
Yeah, I mean, it was interesting, and we'll talk about Hachimura as well. Like, I thought both of them took a little bit just to get settled for different reasons, like different context, that sort of stuff. But, AD, as this game went along, provided just a huge reminder of what the Lakers had been missing. It was interesting, too. We talked about the minutes limit that he was supposedly on. I noted this on Twitter at Cam Brothers. We've been around this stuff a long time. We've heard coaches talk about player limits for injured guys coming back, and they are often loose guidelines, if not flat out BS, as opposed to something hard and fast the way they're treated.
Right.
But this game, I actually thought there was an element of Darvin playing AD those extra couple minutes because he recognized we cannot lose this game.
Yeah, this was a game
need to win this.
This is a game the Lakers got down by as much as 10 in the first half, closed it to basically even at the half. Kind of play back this. It was not an inspiring game. The Lakers did not come out and wipe the floor with, again, a very bad Spurs team. It really wasn't until a 3-point little run of 3-pointers in the fourth quarter. The Lakers got some space, 6, 7, 8 minutes left in the fourth quarter. And then, they sort of controlled it throughout. I never really felt like the team was going to lose this game, but, second night of a back-to-back, LeBron, I think, was very measured in what he was doing. The rotation was disjointed because you're getting AD back in at a time. Like, I don't think they're screwing around with this, with the minutes restriction. And at some point we should talk about that play at the end of the third quarter where he twists his ankle and you're like, oh my God, heaving up a buzzer beating, shot at the 3, just, from half court. And he twists his ankle, lands on, I think it was Zach Collins.
It was Zach Collins.
Hey, that guy, he's getting Russ in trouble. He's getting under Anthony Davis's feet. What is up with that guy?
Yeah, and AD was down for a second. He ended up fine, but my God, I mean, Darvin said after the game he almost passed out.
Yeah,
Like, he was just
it is a reminder that watching Anthony Davis, for as brilliant as he can be, for as dominant and unicorny and all these other things, it is a wholly unpleasant experience because it's too stressful. It's like watching a horror movie where you're like you're always like this, and you're waiting to see what happens when somebody opens the door, and is a bad guy gonna pop through that window?
But the difference
very
is
stressful.
The difference is you don't care about any of those characters. They're disposable. Anthony Davis matters. Like,
yes,
I care if the guy in if the guy in the ghost face mask comes out and slashes AD. I don't care if he slashes up one of these like Insta model people. I don't care.
Yeah, half the time you're rooting for it. You're like, get him.
Yeah. I mean, you're covering your eyes, but you have your fingers open because you do want to actually see what happens in those cases. AD has to be protected at all costs.
It is so stressful, and it is so uncomfortable. And the one thing that I liked over these last 6, I was sort of watching the games. I'd forgotten a little bit. But anyway, AD, I think particularly offensively, it took a second to kind of get going a little bit and feel what was comfortable and get the timing back or whatever. But it was pretty early, pretty quick in his first shift that I think he had 2 blocks, on consecutive plays. And the Lakers have been existing, no disrespect to Thomas Bryant, with basically zero rim protection since Anthony Davis went out. Like their block shots come from like guards trailing back on plays, Pat Beverly from behind, LeBron chase downs. It's not dudes protecting the rim. They have not had that. And San Antonio, who actually are a fairly decent offensive team, horrible defensively, but not so bad offensively. After that 30-point first quarter, the Lakers did a pretty good job putting a lid on them.
Yeah, they just, you mentioned there was a disjointed element to, getting AD back. He's playing off the bench where you're not used to it. It's been almost 6 weeks without him, so it takes a minute to get it back. Plus, you're implementing Hachimura, who we are going to get into. But there was also an element, too, I think you could feel with these guys having gone 5.5 weeks without AD, a big chunk of that without Austin Reeves, without Lonnie Walker, feeling a bit of, AD's back, Hachimura's here, it's the Spurs. Yeah, we're going to cruise. Like there was some cruise control going on.
Second night of a back-to-back, too, with a gigantic road trip coming up. They were absolutely in
the first
what
half.
Is the minimum amount of effort? This is actually, there are probably Lakers fans who are annoyed by this. I am not one of them. I'm like, I don't think when you're 4 games under 500 now, 3 games under 500 style points are really that important. But also LeBron especially has been going at a rate that isn't sustainable really in terms of the amount of effort and energy he's got to put into games. They've got this brutal road trip coming up. It is okay to have these measured games in an 82 game NBA season. Can't screw it up. The Lakers have less margin than other teams. I get it, but I don't think they didn't quite, to me at least, get to bleep around and find out territory with this one.
I'll meet you halfway there. I think LeBron has earned the right during this period to measure this one out. The other guys, like the first half, Dennis Schroeder and Patrick Beverly. Schroeder had I thought a terrific game despite a rough night shooting. Thought he was terrific. Mm-hmm. Those 2 guys played with a ton of energy in the first half that I'm like, I hope becomes more contagious to the rest of the team. And this was a night where Wayne and Gabriel didn't play, and we'll talk about this because it was something Lakers Twitter was not happy about.
Yeah, I didn't realize this. I missed that because I wasn't online for a lot of the game.
I can tell you they were, but just Wenyan brings a ton of energy, a bleep ton of energy. And, that is something that you're not going to you're going to feel it when he's not out there in that sense. But the Lakers have screwed up enough winnable games that I'm never going to assume F around and find out can't happen. But I am giving LeBron a pass. LeBron was allowed to measure it. Everybody else needed to pick up for him.
LeBron should have been able to play that game in pajamas. It should be noted, he didn't have a bad game. 8 of 20 from the floor, 9 rebounds, 11 assists. He did have 6 turnovers. It was not his best game, certainly of the season. Only 1 of 6 from 3, but it was nice. I think he understood that there was enough support there, and he did not have to put up 45 for them to win this game.
This was, Brian, really quick on that note, this was the lowest point total LeBron has had since 21 points on December 6th. On a related note, Anthony Davis returned.
Let's talk. We'll talk a little bit more about the impact of AD and, of course, the debut of Rui Hachimura, which are, by the way, all things related to Wenyen Gabriel not playing. If you're one of those people who was really upset by that, so we'll do all of it next.
Locked On Lakers is brought to you by FanDuel, the NFL playoffs. We are in the midst of them. They are awesome, and we are excited about our new sports betting partner for Locked On because they are the #1 sportsbook in America, FanDuel. If you're new to FanDuel, that's even better. Stick around. We'll explain why. They have so many great features that make betting on sports fun and easy, and new customers, people we were just talking about, join today. Get started with $150 in free bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. Just sign up at FanDuel.com/lockedon. FanDuel has all your favorite bets from the money line to point spreads, player props. You can even combine your bets for a chance at a higher payout with a same game parlay. It's all in an app that's safe, secure, easy to use. So again, football fans, don't miss out. Place your first $5 bet to get $150 in free bets, win or lose, at FanDuel.com/lockedon. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NFL.
All right. So in addition to Anthony Davis, and man alive, it was just nice to have. Looks smoother offensively than I thought he was going to, given the time off, basically pumping out about a point a minute. So picked up right where he left off in that sense. The stat line looks great. And then you look that he only played 26 minutes. You're like, all right, here we go. Yeah. But of course, this game was also the Lakers' debut of Rui Hachimura. A good game, I think, overall for Hachimura, who was, I think, a little bit excited at the beginning. He also took a second to kind of get going. 12 points, the final line, 4 of 7 from the floor. He had 6 rebounds. He had an assist. He had a steal. He was a plus 17 in only 22 minutes. So had a really nice impact in relatively limited run. What did you think of Hachimura, both the player and then just as important as sort of the downstream impact of his presence?
Well, I mean, it's funny, actually, that he's in a unique situation where he's both on a new team, but he's playing with Wizards West because he played with Russ, he played with Thomas Bryant, he played with Troy Brown. So there is some familiarity, but you could feel in the beginning that he was tentative. He was a little bit unsure of himself. I think kind of self-conscious. There in the first half, there was a sequence where they were in transition, and LeBron gave him this feed that everybody else who's used to playing with LeBron, they just scoop that thing up and it's an easy layup or dunk. And Hachimura initially bobbled it before eventually getting the layup, and you could feel his thought bubble in transition. Like, I can't mess up this pass from LeBron. I can't mess up this pass from LeBron. Damn it, I'm going to mess up this pass from LeBron. Okay, I'm all right.
It went in. It wasn't pretty. It didn't look good. LeBron. I think he still thinks I'm cool.
Yeah, I just got a basket from LeBron. And as the game went along, he definitely became more assertive in a good way offensively. And you could just see the impact of having a guy with his size and athleticism out there. He's not necessarily a rebounding machine. He had 6 in this game, which is fine.
He actually rebounded in this game better than he has traditionally over the course of his career on a per minute basis.
Right. But what he did very well, beyond just solid night on the boards, is he used his body well to create other opportunities for someone else to grab a board. And just he used, I thought, his size and physicality well in this game. And you could see a noted difference of what it's like with him versus without him along those lines.
Yeah. And I mean, I think let's get back to that, all that stuff. And for me, I thought it was telling. His first bucket, unless I'm remembering it wrong and wrote it down wrong, was that little pull up,
yes,
mid range,
Yep.
and that's a shot that he likes. Is my understanding, and it was a reminder that okay, they got a guy on the wing now who is an offense, and they don't need necessarily tons of offense. The Lakers offense actually been really good over the last, basically since the 2-10 start. The Lakers have been a good to very good offensive team relative to the rest of the league. But it is the one thing that they were missing was the ability of a player on the wing with size, not named LeBron James, to create a shot, to put the ball on the floor, to be able to, go one-on-one, whatever it is. To face up somebody in isolation and get his own shot. And that is something that Hachimura does. It's probably his best skill as an NBA player. And so right away, that I noticed, and I think that will open up the floor a little bit too. And I think that will create opportunities to space the floor differently for the Lakers and all that. And then he fits right in when you need to, when you get into the running, up and getting up and down the floor, finishing in transition, all that stuff. He's a big dude.
Yeah.
And he's strong and big and strong and whatever. And I just thought the downstream impacts, and again, the people upset that Wenyen Gabriel didn't play, get used to it, folks. Because especially when Reeves comes back, there aren't going to be minutes for Gabriel, for JTA, which probably didn't upset Twitter. Were people upset on Twitter about JTA?
No, I think people anticipated that JTA was going to be squeezed. I mean, he's not playing anyway.
Right. It didn't come up. But where are those minutes? So Bryant's going to play a little bit. AD is going to go from 26 to 36 at some point, hopefully pretty soon. Hachimura, you would think over the long term, as he gets settled, is going to play more than 22 minutes a night. So, not everybody's going to play.
Yeah, great example, I thought, of the downstream effect just on the court beyond the rotation stuff we're talking about, which we can get more into. There was a great play where I thought he had a really good challenge on a drive that led to a miss, and then he used his body to allow LeBron to get the defensive rebound. It leads to a Schroeder three. It ended up followed up by a Max Christie corner three as part of a 9-0 run, and it put the Lakers up 97-89. That was really when they started controlling the game, and that was a lineup. It was interesting. You had Dennis Schroeder, Max Christie, LeBron, Rui, and Thomas Bryant. To say the least, that is, that's not a grouping that played much together before. Remove Rui from the equation.
Right.
That was an unusual look for them. But somebody like Rui, who's, I think, pretty malleable, as you were talking about, in the way that he can get used, creates just more optionality. The Wenyen Gabriel of it all. First of all, shout out to Wenyen Gabriel for playing well enough this season that fans are actually wanting him on the floor and actually thinking that it helps the team, because I can promise you that is not something that everybody was counting on heading into the season. But specifically with Wenyen essentially getting a DNP CD, a lot of fans I noticed on Lakers Twitter were upset about this, because there were times where Darvin was running the Russ, Pat Bev, Schroeder, three small guard look at a time where you had more big guys available. And frankly, we haven't even seen a ton of that during this period where AD was out. And again, you don't have Lonnie and Austin, much less Rui on the team. So I think it was more of Wenyen kind of being the avatar of what Laker fans hate with that 3-guard look than Wenyen necessarily, even though I do think fans now really want him on the court.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's sort of a fan favorite kind of player at this point. Let's talk about that next, because I think there are some reasons that those lineups were still being deployed, and I think they're going to, in some cases, continue to be deployed. I guess maybe more than people are looking to see. I do want to let you know that today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, the official sportsbook of Locked On. Make every moment more. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn today to get started. So let's talk about that. Like, how much should we expect to see the 3 guards together? Like, is Darvin continuing to screw it up, Andy, with his guard fetish? So we'll get into that next. I have to admit, I didn't really look at any of the lineups that were out there, particularly given the weirdness of, you got, a clock on Anthony Davis, who isn't starting, but he normally would. And then, you're integrating Rui Hachimura for his first game. I didn't really have a problem with the lineups that Darvin was putting out there, particularly against a Spurs team that, once you get Pirtle off the floor, even like when Zach Collins plays, he's not a bruising Joel Embiid type center up front. I mean, the Spurs are a bunch of 6'8" guys, 6'7" guys, and down. The lineups tonight, on Wednesday, didn't bother me.
Well, I think what anybody listening to this who was upset about this during the game, and in particular, I mean, I saw a lot of, because I tweeted out at Cam Brothers that Darvin praised Wenyen and JTA after the game for having really positive energy and an attitude on the bench, with AD being back and Rui now, on the team, it drastically affecting their playing time, in particular Wenyen, who had been a regular part of the rotation and playing well, which, added in some respects more reaction to that fire that I was already seeing. There were a lot of people hitting us up during this game about this, unhappy about it. I would say they're uncorrelated. Like, Wenyen in a lot of ways was the avatar for this, because, as you pointed out, in reality, Wenyen's playing time is just going to go down with AD back, with Rui, a similar sized but better, frankly, version of him, and Thomas Bryant, bigger than Wenyen. So, they're in a lot of ways different players. And then, you're going to find playing time, obviously, for LeBron. And, Troy Brown is going to get his minutes, like, Christie's on the bigger side of their guards. And that's before Lonnie and Austin get back. Like, in a lot of ways, I think they're separate things. Wenyen wasn't so much the issue, I think, in reality, as some of those minutes could have gone to, say, Troy Brown, or more of them could have gone to Max.
I guess. I mean, but they're still going. Like, Dennis Schroeder played, 36 minutes in this game?
38.
38. He played a lot of minutes. So, I mean, like, you're gonna see a lot of Schroeder. I mean, I think Beverly's minutes were reasonable. I think a lot of this,
3 of them together. It's
right? No, I understand. I understand.
Dennis, Pat, Russ together.
Sure, I understand. And I again, it didn't bother me, and so I didn't keep a clock on it. I'd be interested to go back and, like, see, exactly how many minutes they did play together. Was it
enough that I noticed? I wasn't necessarily upset, but I did notice it.
Right. I mean, but like, how many? But like I'm saying, like, how many is that? Like, and I thought Darvin found a lot of time for Christie, and it wasn't, I think, having a negative effect. I mean, part of this is, I'm not a huge, Troy Brown is taller than some of these guys, but I think the bigger question, if it's not hurting you defensively, and it really wasn't hurting them defensively after the first quarter of this game, the Lakers were fine, I thought, defensively, or better than fine in stretches, particularly down the stretch. Once they kind of got into the rhythm of the game a little bit, if it's not hurting you defensively, there are a lot of arguments for not having Troy Brown on the floor. There are a lot of arguments for not having other guys. Like I think Reeves is going to soak up a lot of those minutes too when he's back. I don't know if people consider that playing the three guards. I think a lot of it for a lot of people, depending on who it is.
I told you it's those three specifically. I'm telling you, that's what.
No, I understand. And I'm just talking. I think some of this is they don't want to see Westbrook. For some people, probably just don't want to see Russ. I think he got better as the game went along, but his first stint wasn't very good. And then it kind of got better like the team did or whatever. But some people just don't really like seeing Russ on the floor. They don't trust him. They don't enjoy the experience. And, I guess Pat Bev is probably the second most polarizing player on the roster.
Yeah.
I'm not sure Russ is polarizing. You have a few really dedicated.
I don't know. I mean, we see in the comments section a lot on the YouTube channel. There are a fair amount.
Right, that's saying you have a crew of very dedicated supporters, and then a lot of people get mad at him. I do think Beverly is probably next on that list in terms of flashpoint players that their mere presence on the floor annoys a lot of people.
And there's always going to be somebody, by the way. There's always on every team going to be a player who is that, like you said, flashpoint for criticism, who just seems like they represent everything that is either going wrong for a team or is preventing it from going as well as it could.
Right. So, I mean, I think once Reeves is back, I wouldn't expect... I mean, basically that, first of all, Reeves will get a lot of the minutes Christie's getting. I think that's certainly something I think that will happen. But I mean, these lineups are still going to play some. There are going to be times when the Lakers are going to want to go small, and when it makes sense to go small. Hachimura's minutes are going to go up. I think Troy Brown's minutes, frankly, will probably go down.
Again,
I think eventually Hachimura is going to start.
Again, it's the three smalls Darvin chose. I'm telling you, that's what was upsetting.
Sure, I'm not even talking about the angry Twitter people anymore. I'm just sort of thinking about, like I said, the downstream impacts of Hachimura to me are really important in terms of what Darvin has available to him to play and when and what it looks like and whatever. And I think I think we'll see. I mean, if Hachimura's defense holds up, and that's really the big thing, is like defensively, if Hachimura holds up in ways that I think the Lakers are hoping he will, I think eventually he starts, or at the very least pushes up his minutes considerably from 22. Excuse me. And a lot of everything else that's left over is sort of based on matchups, based on the flow of the game. We're going to still see Beverly, Schroeder, and Westbrook play together. But I think we're getting to a place where Lonnie could get squeezed. Troy Brown is going to get squeezed.
Been saying for a few weeks that when he is back, I don't think Lonnie's going to start. I don't think he's going to be in the starting lineup anymore. Whether they're either going to, I think, stay bigger with Bryant and AD as the front court and LeBron as the three, or Rui ends up starting as part of an AD LeBron front court, or Troy Brown just stays in there. But I don't think one way or the other Lonnie's going to be starting when he's back, because I do think that Darvin Ham likes the Schroeder Beverly backcourt, which, I mean, I'm not even looking to debate it. I'm just saying I think it's what he likes. And it becomes much easier to get away with that if your 3 through 5 are normal sized, so you have one fewer guy guarding up, and that is possible with either LeBron at the 3, Rui at the 3, or Troy at the 3. One of the 3.
I think but it wouldn't shock me if Reeves started. It's just the problem is too. It's like, are you more comfortable with bringing Schroeder off the bench? Are you more comfortable with bringing Pat Bev off the bench? Or those, because Troy Brown could start, but play non-starters minutes.
Sure.
I think there are going to be 4 or 5 kind of 6 really core players who are going to get a lot of time, and I think Reeves will be one of them. And then after that, I think it's a lot of this guy played 20 minutes tonight based on the matchup, and that guy sat. And then the next night, the guy who sat, or played 5 minutes could play 19, while the guy who played 22 plays 6. So, for the role guys, for the reserve players, for however you want to kind of characterize them, there's still a lot of sorting out to be done here, because the Lakers have been playing so shorthanded for so long. And now they've added a player in Hachimura who's brought in to be a big part of the rotation, in replacing a guy in Kendrick Nunn who was more or less not in it. Only out of necessity was actually in the rotation. And so, over the next week, hopefully you get an Anthony Davis back, Austin Reeves back, Lonnie Walker back, and you're adding Anthony Davis back into it's 4 guys.
Sure.
Certain players are not going to play. The combinations are going to change. But I don't think he's going to completely abandon those 3 guards playing together at different points. It does just give him more options, and quite frankly, gives him more options if Russ isn't playing well, not playing with the fourth quarter, or you need more size than Pat Bev, or need more shooting, or whatever it is. He's just got choices when everybody's healthy.
Look, man, I'm just relaying the choices that will make people mad. That's all.
Yeah. Didn't bother me. The Lakers have a massively important and very difficult 5-game road trip coming up, Andy, that we will get into a lot more for Friday's show, looking at where they are in the Western Conference as this begins, as we get sort of into February. This sort of crabs in a bucket Western Conference is very weird, but very helpful for the Lakers, who are still only 3 games out of 4th, because the Pelicans have really hit free fall without Zion and Brandon Ingram in the lineup. So, man alive, yes, it is really amazing what has been going on in the Western Conference this season. So much more to come for Friday as we wrap up the week, but a fun debut for Rui Hachimura and a welcome return for Anthony Davis. Makes a difference. We'll see everybody next time.